Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy. Brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. Many Virginia sheep will be losing their winter coat soon. Early spring is the best time to plant asparagus. And we visit the winner of the first Virginia Bullpen Entrepreneur Contest.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. We're coming to you this week from Meadow Farm Museum in Henrico County, where one of their main exhibitions is a flock of sheep. Spring is in the air and so is shearing time. Burke Muller visits a workshop to show us how it's done.
When the weather turns cold outside, a wool-lined jacket is like a warm friend. Here in Highland County, some experienced sheep shearers taught their skills to new students.
It can be quite a struggle learning how to keep a fully grown sheep still enough for proper shearing, as 18-year-old Emily Donaldson found out firsthand. She grew up on a Highland County farm and has been around large livestock all her life. But wrestling sheep isn't easy for anyone the first time they try it.
I'd like to raise sheep when I get older, start my own farm, and I think it's a good skill to have.
Instructor Tom Stanley has years of sheep shearing experience and was eager to pass on his knowledge.
What we want to do is we want to be able to stretch his skin out nice and taut, so you got a nice taut surface for your machine to run over. And depending on the size of the sheep, will kind of determine, what's the best method. I'd say the vast majority of the time when I'm shearing a sheep this size, okay, I'm going to take this leg right here and I'm going to place it right up here, kind of catch it right here on my ribs, just like that. And see, it'll stretch the skin out. And that leaves my non-shearing hand here with my forearm to hold that leg up out of the way, and I leave my fingers here available to shear down and work my skin like this.
The event was organized by Highland County Farm Bureau President Carrie Sponagle, who's also the cooperative extension agent for both Highland and Bath counties. She also wanted to learn sheep shearing and was tasked with storing the shorn wool bundles in this large container, something her ancestors could appreciate.
This is actually a really fun workshop for me. I have some sheep background in my family. My granddaddy was a sheep shearer in the community, and in the 70s he went to a champion sheep shearing contest in Virginia and placed second. So this is really near and dear to my heart because I showed sheep as a 4-H'er, and to be able to hold a workshop to train the next generation in this skill, it's really necessary if you're going to be a wool sheep breeder.
This is an introductory workshop. Students are learning the basics like blade selection, maintenance, and how to shear the first part of the sheep, which is the belly. It's a critical area to understand because there are a lot of veins, grooves, and loose skin. The next step is much harder, learning how to hold the sheep in place.
See how I'm clamping on the sheep and then pulling back? When you start this blow, you need to be, you're straight legged. Your knees are locked. And if you laying the sheep back like this more, when you come down into this point right here, the more she's laying back, the smoother it is. You don't want it where you're not punching in on it. And what you're aiming for here is to clear all this wool from this flank right there on the first blow. Now you gotta watch here. The blood vessel runs right under this flank. When you get to that point, you want to start turning your handpiece slightly that way, so that piece of flank skin doesn't run up in your comb.
And there are other danger spots newbies need to watch out for.
Now we gotta watch the teeth. If there's anything you cannot cut on a sheep, it's teeth. Okay, all right. So you just gotta watch, and your belly wool is going to fall down and cover those teats. So as you work your way across, you can flip that belly wool out of your way, and there'll be a little bit of wool left down here. And depending on the sheep, depending on the wool, you can come down here and cover that teat. Easy, sweetie. You can cover that teat with your non-shearing hand, all right? But that's a matter of practice, and you just got to take your time. Make sure you know where those teats are.
Raising sheep may not be as popular in other parts of Virginia, but here in the mountains, the enthusiasm is still there.
Highland County is known as Virginia's little Switzerland, and by statewide, there's about 89,000 sheep in the state. But our climate in particular here, our elevation, we can grow some really good sheep back here in this country. We've got a lot of terrain. It's not a whole lot of crop ground around, so we can grow a lot of beef and a lot of sheep. And so folks are still in the sheep business back here. There aren't as many as there were, you know, a decade or two ago, but you can still grow some good sheep back here in Highland County.
Passing on skills to the next generation in the tradition of Virginia agriculture. In Highland County, Virginia, I'm Burke Moeller reporting.
Sheep are popular livestock in the mountains of western Virginia, although they are raised across the state. They used to be a major livestock sector in the Old Dominion, but changing consumer tastes and losses to coyotes have relegated sheep to a minor income source for most farmers. However, sheep continue to be very popular livestock projects for young people in 4-H and FFA programs. While some sheep have wool that must be sheared each year, so-called hair sheep shed their coats like cattle and are raised solely for meat.
Hi, today we're going to be talking about how to grow asparagus from the ground up. Please stay tuned.
We're stronger together, especially at this difficult time. For over 90 years, we've watched our membership grow, and we're honored to be part of such a special community. Thank you to the farmers who provide for us every day. Virginia Farm Bureau is proud to serve our members, their families, and to give back to our local communities. That's the Farm Bureau way.
Well, hello and welcome. Today we're in Warrenton, Virginia. We're at the Fauquier Education Farm. We're here with Mr. Jim Hankins, the executive director of the farm. Jim, thanks for letting us come out here today.
Always a pleasure.
Jim, asparagus, great crop. My family loves to eat asparagus. Yeah. Can it be a good one for a home gardener?
Oh, absolutely. I say it to folks all the time. You'll never ever regret putting in, you know, a little patch of asparagus. It's a perennial crop that will keep on coming back for many, many years. We'll be harvesting off of this patch for 30 years.
Oh, that is awesome. I love the idea. But tell me, now you've got going to have a nice sized patch, but what do you do to get started with asparagus?
Well, the very first, you know, this is a perennial crop that's going to be around for a long time. Let's invest a little bit of effort in the front end. Get a soil test. This is a nice patch of soil. We had a great watermelon crop here last year, but the pH was 6.2. You want to get the pH up above 7. You know, it's less than a half an acre, but I put down 400 pounds of lime.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Want to get that pH, get it right for this particular crop.
Yep.
I got you. Now, you're holding some crowns, right, in your hand? Now, where do you get those? Or where can a homeowner get them?
Any good, reputable, you know, seed catalog, a lot of nurseries, good garden centers will have them in the early spring.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That sounds perfect. They look kind of interesting. So show me kind of how do you plant here? How do you plant these? How do you get them established?
It's really simple. First, you're going to need a fairly deep furrow, about 6 inches.
Okay.
And then, you know, asparagus are just wonderful because when you get the spacing, the roots themselves tell you about how far apart you want to space these crowns.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you just want it so that the crown is laying right on the tip of the one before.
Okay.
And then since we are investing in this, I've gotten a truckload of some really beautiful compost, and I'm going to be fairly generous.
All right, that looks great. Really nice material there.
And then just cover that with a little bit of a little layer of dirt.
So you just come across, cover it up.
Yep.
And then...
and what's going to happen is these little plants will come up pretty quickly. We'll see the spears coming up fairly soon. Don't harvest any of them. You have to let that plant grow. And I'm actually going to come back and put more compost.
Okay.
And a thick layer of hay mulch on either side, because weed control is really important. And, you know, other than that, and just leaving them alone for this first year.
Right, right.
The second year, you can pick every spear that comes up for about 10 days.
Okay.
Then just stop. Let the plants come up. It's a big, ferny, pretty plant.
Right.
The year after that, you can stretch that out to about a month, every spear that comes up. And then out at 4 and 5 years, you'll get about 6 weeks of production.
Okay, so you just kind of really let the plant establish itself.
Yes.
Every year.
Yep.
For a little while.
Yep. It needs the foliage up above. And then during the winter, you just mow that down.
Oh, makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Well, thank you for letting us come out here and see this today. I know you've got a lot of work to do, so I don't want to keep you any longer.
I'm always happy to have you.
Thank you. Well, for more information about asparagus planting, contact your local county extension office and talk to a master gardener. For From the Ground Up, I'm Chris Mullins. We'll see you next time.
From the Ground Up is presented with the generous advice and assistance of Virginia Cooperative Extension. Visit their website at ext.vt.edu.
Coming up on Heart of the Home, a delicious salmon chowder. Stay with us.
Our cow, she walks into the barn, and she gets milked. Milk's taken from her and put through a chiller. And that milk's taken from body temperature of a cow, which is about 102.5, and dropped to 35 degrees and put straight onto a tractor trailer. And it goes straight to the plant the next day. So most of the milk that's sitting on your store shelves is probably less than 48 hours old. And that's a pretty good testament to how efficient we are.
There's nothing like a hearty chowder to warm you up on a winter day. Chef Tammy Brawley's latest recipe features a fish dish in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen, and welcome to Heart of the Home. Today we're going to make a delicious salmon chowder. Love doing this recipe because when I typically serve salmon to my clients, I will cut off the belly of the salmon and the tails. We will freeze those until we have enough to make this chowder. So there is absolutely no waste. What we want to start out with is about 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to get that melted. And we're going to turn our heat down just a little bit. And we're going to add some chopped bacon. Once again, Virginia has got some great pork forms, and we're using some Virginia bacon here. And you want to let that bacon kind of render off. It doesn't need to be completely crispy, but you do want it to be a little bit brown. All right, so we've let our bacon render, and it's given us quite a bit of fat. Technically, when you add butter to another fat, you're actually stopping the butter from burning. So that's kind of the reason we have 2 fats in here. And it's done actually quite well. The bacon is great. We don't need it completely crispy, but we did want it a little bit more done than raw. So we're going to leave our fat in our pan. We're going to drain our bacon out. Don't worry, it's coming back. Now we're going to come back and we're going to add our vegetables. And what I have here is the recipe calls for scallions, pardon me, but I didn't have any, but I did have some leeks. It's kind of a nice little substitute if you're trying to use up everything in your refrigerator. And we're going to go ahead and add that to our fat here. You want to saute the vegetables just to get them soft. It won't take more than about 3 to 5 minutes tops. You're not looking to really caramelize or cook them down. You're just looking to get them a little soft. So now we're going to go ahead and add some few more ingredients. We're going to go ahead and add about 2 cups or so of stock. Actually, I've cut the recipe in half for camera purposes. So your recipe might say 4 cups of stock, and that makes quite a bit of chowder. We're just going to cut this in half. We've got one. I'm going to go ahead and add a second one. You're not looking to make a soup here. You're looking to make a chowder. Chowder, by definition, always includes potatoes, and that is certainly no exception here. We're going to add the potatoes. We've diced them up. We're using russets, but if you have other potatoes at home, go right ahead and use those as well. Just want to peel them, and you want to dice them in about a ½ inch to an inch. Now it's at this point we can do a little salt and pepper, a little seasoning, but I would be hesitant on how much salt to add because of the bacon and the fat that we left in the pan. So I would not add a lot of salt at this point. A little pepper, and now we're going to let this come to a boil till the potatoes are tender. All right, so our potatoes have become nice and tender here. You just want to check them with a fork. And we're going to go ahead now and we're going to add the cooked bacon back in. We're now going to whisk up a little bit of cornstarch with about a tablespoon or so of water. Cornstarch is a nice little thickener to use. I'm going to stir in the bacon and the cornstarch. You'll start to notice a little creamy texture at the soup there, at the chowder I should say. And you want to let that go for maybe about a minute or two. Starting to pick up a nice texture here. I'm going to go ahead and add about a cup or so of heavy cream. Now, there are ways you could cut this down and make it healthy if you wanted to. You could certainly use a turkey bacon because you are using the butter at the beginning, so you wouldn't have as much fat, but turkey bacon would make it a little healthier. You could also certainly add milk as opposed to heavy cream. Stir that in. Oh, this is starting to smell so good. And now we're going to add about a cup or so of corn, again, kind of a standard for chowders. Buying a frozen vegetable, really, it's fine to do that. What you want to watch for on those labels is your sodium content. That, to me, would be the enemy in cooking, is sodium. But there's no reason not to use fresh corn in the summer when it is in season. Stir that up, and then the last thing we're going to add is our salmon. We have, again, the salmon bits that I have saved from using salmon fillets. Stir that up. And pop the lid on it. We're going to let that go maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and taste this deliciousness. So our salmon chowder has come to a boil, and our salmon has cooked very thoroughly. I've turned the heat off. Just going to stir it around a little. Here is our delicious salmon chowder with potatoes and corn and bacon and onions and celery and garlic. Oh my gosh. Not only is it a delicious recipe, it's a great way to use up leftovers in your refrigerator, particularly salmon bits. And if you've got leeks instead of green onions or vice versa, you can use those interchangeably. And there you have it, a delicious salmon chowder. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Recipes from the Heart of the Home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafb.com/recipes, as well as on Chef Tammy Brawley's website at greenkitchenrichmond.com.
Raising fish in farm ponds or indoor facilities is a fast-growing field in the Old Dominion. Farm ponds offer an opportunity for rural landowners to raise catfish, prawns, freshwater shrimp, striped bass, and trout. Other aquaculture producers raise oysters and clams in cages in the salt waters of eastern Virginia. Indoor fish farming in massive tanks is much more expensive, but it can be profitable. Blue Ridge Aquaculture in Henry County is the largest indoor producer of tilapia in the world, harvesting 1 million pounds of fish a year. An indoor salmon facility in Southwest Virginia is set to come online in 2023.
A Virginia meat processing company recently won a $10,000 award for their efforts to reduce waste. Ricky Gibson reports this is just one way this company is striving to help farmers and the public.
Seven Hills Food Company of Lynchburg is only a few years old,
but they're already succeeding in rebuilding a local meat processing business that had almost disappeared.
This facility that we operate out of is nearly 100 years old, and it's been operated by several different businesses over the years. It sat dormant for about 15 years or so before we took it over and renovated it and turned it into a modern meat processing facility.
Dalton Moser is vice president of Seven Hills Food Company. He says the few small local meat processors in Virginia cannot fulfill all the orders they have for their services, especially after the pandemic boosted consumer demand for local beef. And since the great majority of Virginia cattle are sent out of state to be finished and processed, farmers are missing a marketing opportunity. His company offers beef processing for local farmers and also supplies its own brand of Virginia beef for retailers.
The demand is there. The product is fantastic. That's something we've come to realize over the last couple of years, that the beef produced in this region is some of the best beef in the country. When you think about ribeyes, you think about Texas, right? That's what people think about, but it's like the best kept secret. The cattle coming from this part of the country are some of the best out there.
It's great to have a local producer that's 40 minutes down the road as opposed to 4 hours, and we can take smaller groups. Usually, typically when we sell cattle to them, it's in 2 to 5 head increments, and so that's just worked great for us to be able to have that local outlet that has been phenomenal to work with.
Dalton Bennett is one of the owner-operators of historic Knollcrest Farm in nearby Charlotte County, Virginia. In addition to giving his farm an outlet to sell cattle they don't need for their breeding operation, Seven Hills is saving them money.
Well, we're looking at diesel fuel, $5 a gallon, and whether you haul them or you get somebody else to haul them, it's just gonna cost you more. We love the local aspect of it too, being that they're a small business as well.
And since Seven Hills can provide a USDA inspection, it's boosting their local beef sales.
I think that if we learned anything out of the pandemic, out of COVID, we learned that people weren't as secure in their food as we thought we were. And when we had those huge plants that had this huge capacity and along with that have an enormous amount of efficiency, when they started shutting down or cutting their production in half, we saw this enormous bottleneck in the cattle business, and that it shocked a lot of us, and it scared a lot of people, and myself included. And I think as we see plants like Seven Hills and others around the country, it eases just a little bit of that bottleneck.
In addition to growing their own beef brand and serving local cattlemen, Seven Hills recently made a conscious effort to repurpose the cattle hides that are the result of processing beef. Seven Hills has been selling them to local leather goods manufacturers. And it was that process that caught the eye of the judges at the first ever bullpen entrepreneurial competition.
Up to several million pounds of hides a year are destined for a local landfill. So, the presentation and really the story is not about us making money off these things, it's about keeping these hides out of the landfill. And that's our goal, and that resonated with the judges at the bullpen.
Technically named the Virginia Foundation for Agriculture, Innovation, and Rural Sustainability Agricultural and Forestry Innovation Challenge, the bullpen competition allowed 5 finalists to present their models for startup businesses to a panel of judges at the recent Virginia Farm Bureau Federation annual convention. As the top prize winner, Seven Hills Foods took home $10,000 that is giving them more visibility and helping them recycle more hides.
The benefit of the initial funds that we received goes directly towards our hide processing equipment. Like I mentioned, we're installing that as we speak, and we have orders to fill starting in January. So we're using that to deploy assets and resources into upgrading our facility to handle that additional work.
2022 was the first year for the bullpen competition. The Virginia Farm Bureau and other sponsors plan to continue encouraging rural entrepreneurs with cash prizes in the future. Meanwhile, farmers in several parts of Virginia have been pressing local governments and the state for help to plan and build other meat processing facilities. The goal is to help even more cattle producers process their beef locally. In Lynchburg, Virginia, I'm Ricky Gibson reporting.
We're so glad you could join us this week to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From the kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we are proud to say that this is Real Virginia. For everyone from the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart always.
We know that farmers don't always get a chance to hear from the folks who use their products in their homes and on their tables. So we visited the State Fair of Virginia to get some thoughts from our fairgoers on what it is that you do and how it impacts their lives every day.
I just want to say thank you to all the guys. We've got some wonderful farmers in Powhatan. We've got probably the best farmers in the world right here in Virginia. And we want to say thank you. We know it's a tough job. It's not a whole lot of big money rollers, but we want to thank you and God bless all of you guys.
I'd be happy to turn around and tell that farmer, male or female, exactly how appreciative I am for all the hard work they do. I can appreciate the ridiculous hours that they have to work and how they're out on the farm for what little return that they get. And I want them to know, I'd like you to know, with how appreciative I am and my family are for everything that we buy local, that we try to do as best we possibly can, whether it's on the beef or whether it's on the vegetables and things that we have when we grow. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you very much for all they do.
We have farmers in our family, and we appreciate what you do every day. From the milk, the pork that we use, all the vegetables that we get, we thank you and keep up what you do. We're there for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for all that you do. I know it's difficult and very tiring, so thank you for having us to eat healthy, nutritious food. God bless you.
We're thankful for our farmers for giving us all of our food, locally sourced, and taking care of this baby's tummy so he can grow really big.
Thank you so much for raising the cows so that I can have milk every day.
Thank you, farmers, for giving me corn to eat. We love farm-to-table food and cows. Thank you, farmers. Thank you.
Farmers are role models to me because they work so hard to get their job done. Their job never ends. It's always at home or at a different location, and they are probably the hardest workers in our country.
Muchas gracias a los granjeros de Virginia.
Thank you, farmers.
Thank you. We appreciate everything you do.
Thank you for all that you do and all the foods that you give us.
Thank you, farmers, for just the produce and so we can eat fresh and clean and so we can stay healthy.
Tomatoes, peppers, and strawberries. I want to be a farmer when I grow up. Thank you, farmers.